Hello there! In this video I will show you how I made my Marianne von Fire Emblem 3 Houses cosplay. As I was working on a pretty tight time frame when making this, I didn't have the chance to film everything, and I won't explain everything in too much detail, but I hope you enjoyed this video anyways. So let's get to it! As always, I start out with referencing and sketching how to make the costume. It's a rather simple looking cosplay, but actually has several layers and a lot of thought work went into planning out the different parts. I start out with a light blue dress and making a mock-up. Or actually rather several iterations of this mock-up. I had a base dress pattern that I modified to fit my body shape and the design of the dress. The dress is made of a micro satin fabric, has an invisible zipper in the back, a hand-sewn neckline and horsehair braid in the hem. The petticoat is in 2 layers with 3 rows of ruffles on each layer. Altogether, it's over 90 meters of edging that needed to be finished. I calculated and drafted this myself. I can really recommend Kirli Cosplay's petticoat tutorials, and I will link it in the description below. Oh, Molly, you're not being very helpful. Swoosh, swoosh. Princess mode activated. A lot of hand sewing went into this cosplay, such as here on the waistband of the petticoat, which no one will ever see, but oh well, there it is, all neat. The next layer of this cosplay is the dark blue velvet dress. I continued on with the same pattern I made earlier and modified it yet again, adding some puffed sleeves and this boob window thing. Oh mother, why do you do such boring things? Working with velvet, I had hand-based everything before sewing together to make sure the pieces didn't shift in the sewing machine. It is tedious, but I do enjoy this calm crafting. And then I sew together in the sewing machine. I wanted to color match everything, and I actually found these flowers for the trim that matched the golden colored silk I'd chosen for the bias tape and the details. Instead of pinning down the ribbon, I used this double-sided sewing tape. I also use this for zippers, and it's very handy. I glue it down using my quilting ruler as a guide. The flowers I glue down with a temporary quilting spray glue. I have a tear-off stabilizer on the back so the fabric won't pull as much when stitching on the embellishments. The collar was made using silk fabric. I decided to use faux fur for the hem, which is such a great joy, and if you've ever worked with faux fur, you know it gets everywhere. That's why I always keep the vacuum close at hand. I fluff up the fur from the seam before cutting off the excess fabric on the inside. The horsehair braid on the inside of the hem was hand sewn down. Moving on to the cape. I drafted the cape myself, and for being such a simple shape, it really took several tries to make it right. I sketched out and calculated the placement of and width of the white teeth. I hand sewed together 28 different individual pieces to make the golden trim. Here I'm making the teeth-looking board. I used quilt batting for extra bulk as the silk fabric is quite thin. And more hand sewing before I could put it through the machine. My hands were pretty tired by now. The cape is fully lined and hand sewn on the inside. The scalloped edges on the collar was quite tricky and took several tries to find a technique that worked. Do it over, and failure is part of the creative process, but nonetheless frustrating. Here I'm working on the epaulettes. Lastly, here we have the bias tape and velvet lining on the inside edge. Moving on to the cape details, which also put me through more work than anticipated. I start out with referencing and try to figure out the shapes, and I do this by sketching in Photoshop over the reference. I then 3D modeled in Fusion 360. Making the organic shapes on the front brooch was so tricky for me to figure out. I think I put in more than 12 hours into just trialing and erroring this piece. I table flipped and started over several times, but I finally got it right. 3D modeled little stars for the front of the cape. The shoulder armor pieces was done the good old way by patterning by hand and made in Worbla. Patterning this took me about 30 minutes compared to the countless of hours of 3D modeling. And I guess anything you know how to do is easy, and what you do not know is hard. Then, when everything was built and 3D printed, I primed with wood glue, filler spray and wall filler. I do this several times to get the smooth result I wanted. I used spray paints to get this chocolate brown base paint, and then acrylic colors for the gold. I actually ended up paint testing 4 different golden colors to make sure the color matched with the color of the golden fabric. Lastly, I seal with a semi-gloss varnish. I started out with a base wig, and then I teased and textured it. Then I used some extra wefts to make an attachable braid. And there we have it! Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Fire Emblem Three Houses is actually one of my favorite games, and I've done several playthroughs. Marianne is a bit out of my comfort zone and not the type of character I usually make, and I wasn't sure on how I would feel with the whole cosplay put together, but I loved how it turned out and I felt like a true princess. I hope you have a great day.